Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's well today. Please, can you just let me know if you can hear me clearly? Thumbs up. Perfect. Thank you. So welcome back to some of my previous students from LSCM5121. If you are new here, my name is Nerissa Haricharan, but I'm going to take you through a little bit of an introduction very quickly. I just want to share my screen. Okay. Just tell me when you can see my screen. Can we see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. So, as I said, welcome to LSCM5122. This module predominantly is going to be focused on operations management. So, as mentioned, I am your lecturer, so this is me. My name is Nerissa Haricharan. For those of you that are new here, currently live in Durban, and I am the branch manager and basically manage the region for KZN for a global logistics company. So more focused within the courier industry, last mile, etc. Currently have a master's in commerce degree, so an MCom, as well as a NQF level 9, which is a master's equivalent from Gibbs for an international executive development program for women. So I do have quite a bit of experience within the industry specifically. I've got about 14 years worth of experience in logistics, obviously coupled with a few degrees on top of that. So I have seen the industry. I've seen the industry grow. I have exposure to various other industries due to me being in career as well as being in a commercial role as well, able to understand different supply chains of different businesses and the interactions thereof. So it has been very enlightening. And I think what's good about that is I can bring in a little bit more of real life on the job experience so we can use a little bit more examples when we're going through our theories. It does help because it basically brings a little bit of street smartness into the bookwork, and you're able to understand things a little bit better. Okay, for those of you who have done the previous model of 5121 in semester 1, just a heads up, this is a little bit more complex than the previous module, so it will need a little bit more interaction from you, as well as a little bit more of exposure, reading journal articles, etc., especially when it comes to application. Okay, but we will go through everything. So as a start, just as an introduction and things for you to remember this semester, and also things that we've learned from last semester that we could now take forward into this semester. So I'd like to obviously start off our first lecture just from an introduction perspective, set the pace, as well as create some sort of pathway for us for the semester itself. I know it does get busy. There's different things that pop up during the semester, but at least we know like this is the groundwork. So firstly, there is a pacer, which I will share in this session specifically. PAS has been updated up until your assignments. Obviously, final examination date and timelines are not yet released, but we can put that into a pacer and we know what we're working towards. Also, if you have any questions as we go through the session, just unmute yourself and you can ask the question. I can't always see the screen, so it does make it a little bit difficult. So PACE is updated as mentioned with PAS. So we'll go through that. I've put in different deadlines in terms of ICE tasks as well, but we'll go through that just a little bit in just a short time. The second thing is ARC, very important. I will be updating ARC in terms of every session that we have with the slides that we would go through in our session, as well as, when recordings are now being posted on our YouTube channel. So you can have full view of that. All of your assignments, I would load that onto ARC, so we just have some sort of commonality. I don't want you now going and doing assignment 2 in assignment 1 and then submitting that, because you would straight away not be marked well. So any information that I do get, I will post this on ARC, so always be checking this. From an academic integrity perspective, you need to know your referencing. I will start this off right at the beginning. There has been in the past students not referencing accordingly, whether it's an in-text referencing or a full-on referencing guideline at the end. I need you to please understand how to reference. The use of AI as well. Last semester for this specific module, we had an assignment that was sort of, you had to use AI. So how to reference that specifically also. I did share on our WhatsApp group the library session, so I would really recommend you to join those sessions, just so you have an understanding of what is expected in terms of referencing. When you do have errors in terms of your referencing, you do end up with deductions on your final assignment mark. So make sure that you do reference correctly. This can go anywhere from 5% to 15%. And it breaks my heart every time I have to deduct these marks. So please make sure that you get these referencing in order. The next one is submission of assignments. I urge you to please be proactive when it comes to your assignments. I know with a lot of us, and I say us because me included, I was this person when I was a student. Procrastination is the thief of time. Please do not procrastinate your assignments. I give you sufficient time, and you'll see when we go through the PACER how much of time there is for your assignment specifically. Make sure you are submitting it before deadline. There has been cases previously when your deadline's given at X date at 23:59, and a student submits at that time, but then you end up with a circle and it doesn't submit at that time, you automatically get a deduction. So please make sure you are submitting this. You also are double checking. You also are submitting this in the format that's required. So when I am uploading the information after today's session, I will put an assignment template on there for you to use and for you to follow. This will help you in terms of your guideline and in terms of what is expected from faculty. And I need you to follow this information because it will help you at the end of the day. Okay, and then I just popped in there what the prescribed textbook is. I do know someone posted on the group yesterday asking for what this textbook is. So this is the textbook. I urge you to please get this textbook as early as you possibly can in the semester. This is not a module that you can wing without a textbook. Whether you get an ebook or you get an actual hard copy textbook, whatever the case may be, please get the textbook. There is a lot of theory in this module. Coupled with theory, you have to do application. So there's a lot of research that goes into it. Unfortunately, you can't always reference, when stuff comes out of Google or, any other sites. The textbook always gives you a distinct idea of where your theory is coming from, and you can work on that by using the internet and other resources. So please make sure you get your textbook as early as possible, because this definitely will help us specifically. Is there any questions so far? Okay, I'm just going to share the PACER quickly, and then we can run through this. So I hope everyone can see my screen. Okay, so this is basically your PACER for the semester. We will be following this, and the deadlines will not change. So to begin, you will have 4 ICE tasks that makes up 10% of your final mark. This is basically a percentage that you can easily get if you just make sure you follow the instructions, you follow any sort of advice that's given to you throughout the semester, as well as make sure you are submitting something. I do provide the deadlines. The deadlines are there as soft deadlines, and I will say this again in every session just before we have a ice house due. The reason being is a lot of times what happens in modules is you end up submitting 4 ice tasks together at the end of the semester. This doesn't help you. The ice tasks are used to help you determine your assignment or aids you basically with your assignment. So make sure you do your ICE task by the deadlines, because it does also help when it comes to grading. There is a hard deadline that's set towards the end of the semester. If you miss that deadline, which I will communicate as we go along, if you miss that deadline, unfortunately, there is no coming back. You are automatically scored a 0 for your ICE task. Assignment 1 counts for 30% of your final mark. And this features Learning Unit 1 to Learning Unit 4. And the due date here is the 1st of September. So you do see you probably have, give or take, about a month for this, which means we have to cover 4 learning unit contents in the space of a month, which doesn't leave us with a lot of time. Okay. Learning Unit 2 counts for 25% of your final mark. And this features your Learning Unit 1 to your Learning Unit 7. So we roughly have about a month and a half to then cover 3 learning units. In essence, we try and cover a little bit more than that in the time period given between the 1st of September to the 20th of October, because our final session is, I think, the 28th of October, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe just before that. This specific module, there is I think 11 sessions, if I'm not mistaken, until the end of semester. So it doesn't give us a lot of time. I will be doing recorded sessions, which I'll take you through where it belongs. We'll take it from there. And obviously your examination is worth 35%. So first class, obviously today, introduction. So even if I take another 10 minutes on the introduction and just setting the pace, then we're going to start with our Learning Unit 1 and Theme 1. So that'll be our live lecture. You'll see every second lecture thereafter then becomes a live lecture. First ICE task is due on the 19th of August. It doesn't give us a lot of time, but you will get the first ICE task round about this date, and you have about a week to submit. Okay, then you have your assignment that's then due on the 1st of September. Just before your assignment due date, I will use roundabout, I would say, this session, which is our live lecture before that, just to go through a little bit of a pacer based on the assignment, etc. I will submit the pacer about 2 weeks prior to that, but I'll use like the first 10-15 minutes of this live lecture to go through the pacer, just so that everybody is well versed on what the expectations of the assignment is going to be. I haven't checked if your assignments have been released as yet. I do have a feeling that it is. So I will get those downloaded and then sent through to you by latest tomorrow. And I'll put that up. And I'll tag it assignment 1 and assignment 2, so you know what you're working towards. Then we have our next ICE task, which is then due on the 9th of September. That ICE task will then be released on the 2nd of September. Then you have your third ICE task due at the end of September, so that's the 30th. Fourth ICE task due on the 14th of October, and then on the 20th of October then becomes your second assignment. Our last lecture, live lecture, happens on the 21st of October, and according to your timetable, that's your final lecture. However, I will be doing a recording on the last session, which is the 28th of October. That is on Learning Unit 10. The reason being is we just do not have enough time in the semester to go over 10 learning units. You can understand that it's jam-packed. We basically have like a session is a learning unit. And normally your learning units go anything from 2 themes to 3 themes. So there's a lot of content that we have to cover. Obviously, we cannot cover everything in our sessions. So the onus is upon you to make sure that you're going through your module outline and you're understanding what the expectations are. You're working through your textbook and your different themes and learning units on your own as well. I am here as support. So if you need anything at all, please just shout. I will post the WhatsApp group link on a I think I have already posted it on ARC. So please make sure if you haven't already joined our WhatsApp group, please join it. It's not only for us, but it's for your other modules as well. If you guys are doing the same modules together, sometimes there is questions that is asked on other modules. It's always nice when you know you have a partner or partners joined with you that can help you to understand a question or something in an assignment, etc. So please make sure that you do join that WhatsApp group. So this is the pacer. I will share this. We normally will stick to it unless there is an absolute emergency that I cannot do a specific session, which I will post on the group to say, unfortunately, I cannot join today, but I'll do a recording instead. But I have to say I'm going to be quite determined in terms of our live lectures that we get as many people as we possibly can, based on the fact that we have a lot of content that we need to cover. Okay. Is there any questions so far? Is there anything else that you would need? You will see that, especially in this module, it's not that full. The module is broken down into 2 different groups. And I do have another lecture that I'm leading, that she's taking the other group. So if you do have friends in the other session, if they have any questions, they can always come to me or go to her, and vice versa for yourself. You are more than welcome to reach out to either one of us. Okay. So if there's no questions, I think we can actually start our session. So I'm not going to bombard you in our very first session. I do know that you have just come off a really nice holiday, and it is sometimes difficult to get to, putting all your effort into something, unfortunately. So I am starting off on a very slower pace in this session, because I want you to get into the hang of what we're going to do this semester. And then as we go along, the pressure is going to be put on harder and harder, unfortunately, just until we can get through most of our important content. So as we start off in the session or in this lecture, we first want to ask ourselves what is operations management specifically? And I want to ask for people to answer the question, but I also know that, you don't want to be put on the spot as well. So when we look at it from a textbook, a definition specifically, we want to understand that operations management itself is administering business practices where you get maximum efficiency within a business. So whether it's planning anything, organizing, or supervising its processes, it entails you transforming material and labor into goods and services as efficiently as possible so you get the maximum profit for your business. So there's different parts of operations management specifically. You have operations management from a goods perspective, where you are legitimately transferring a raw material into a finished good. Like for instance, if we have let's say the fashion industry or the textile industry, you're getting bales of material as raw material, which you are now transforming into a finished item, which is a piece of clothing. So whether it's a t-shirt or a jacket or a pair of pants. So your ops process or your operations management process is everything that goes into you transforming that item into a finished good. Then we have the second part of it, which is your from a service perspective. So your service perspective is very much more different. If I have to look at it from a logistics perspective, where we are offering a service to a customer, we are using ops in terms of how do we deliver a good from point A to point B. Everyone thinks when you look at logistics specifically, it's something very fancy where you have top executives and directors and management and all of that, but the actual people that are part of the operations management process in a logistics environment is the person delivering your item, whether it is going sea freight, air freight, road freight, in a courier vehicle, from a full supply chain perspective. It's those people that are part of the operations management perspective, whether it is fuel efficiency or departure times, arrival times, overtime. All of this is the administration that's behind the operations management specifically. So ops is very critical for basically any business, for the success of any business. You need it needs to focus on how can you more efficiently or effectively run the business, whether it's producing the particular good or whether it's rendering a service to the customer. So there's various roles and responsibilities that come in with operations management. I want to just take you through a little bit or a few examples, just so that it gives you a little bit more of an indication of where operations management in reality sits. Okay, so we're looking at two different industries. So the first industry, we want to look at it from a retail perspective. And when we're looking at from a retail, let's say it's a chain store like a Retailability or an Edgar's specifically, there's different aspects of operations management that's in the retail industry. So the first one, and I'm just giving you examples, this is not everything, but it's just to get your mind wandering just a little bit. We look at it from a supply chain perspective or supply chain management perspective. It's how can you speak to different suppliers or coordinate with different suppliers to make sure that you get timely delivery of your products to your stores? How do you make sure that you don't have any stockouts, meaning that everything, your supply is less than your demand? And also you don't want any overstocking situation where now your supply is more than your demand. So supply chain management within operations helps you in this regard because you're able to plan a little bit better. You're able to coordinate with your suppliers a little bit better. And as we go along, you learn a little bit more about relationship with suppliers and relationships with customers and those sort of things. And you'll understand how operations management actually fits into all of this. Then you have capacity planning. So capacity planning, very important, especially when you come to peak periods and different seasonalities. You want to be able to plan for these different periods, whether it is the festive period, holidays, whether it means from an operations perspective, you have to hire in temporary staff just to cater to having multiple tills open in that time period. How best can you increase your stock levels? Maybe you need better stock take management getting done. So capacity planning, also part of operations management. And then the last one is from a customer services perspective. You want a good checkout process. So also from a till perspective, people manning your floor, making sure that your customers find what they want. The worst possible thing is you're walking in festive period into a shopping mall or into a store, and you're now trying to find different elements of a clothing item that you want, and everyone's looking up at the sky. No one wants to help you. So you want something that enhances customer services, and whether it is a return policy. So you'll see that it is basically an entire full supply chain within that specific industry that will then help you to better plan yourself. Then we're looking at the hospitality industry. So hospitality industry, we're talking about whether it's hotels. So from a capacity planning, you want to be able to forecast sort of your demand for your rooms. How best can you optimize your pricing strategies so that you have maximum occupancy, but you're also maximizing in terms of revenue. So by this, especially from a peak perspective, you know what happens when it's peak season, there's different pricing to off-peak seasons. You want to be able to plan and strategize so that you're getting the most amount of money, especially when your hotel is full. Then we have process design. You want to be able to make sure that you have a streamlined check-in and check-out process. You want a good guest experience. So nobody wants to check in at 3 o'clock at a specific accommodation and the line's out the door. That doesn't streamline you very well. And if you have 4 different check-in points and only one person is not sitting there. So very similarly to capacity planning, you want to be able to design a process that is going to work for everybody. And then we have quality management. So especially when we're working on it from a hospitality and a hotel industry perspective, you want to ensure cleanliness. You want to ensure service is very consistent. It's also very high quality standard. Your guest experience is it needs to be basically foremost important aspect um, of your experience. So although I'm not in the retail and hospitality industry, I know operations management. So I can then be able to understand what's the different criteria that fall within operations management that can then help us to lead a better process, in terms of operations within the different industries. So I'd like to say it's plug and play, but it's very easy for me to say plug and play based on the theoretical part of it. There's different elements that happen that a lot of us don't know about, especially in industries that we are not fully exposed to. But it does help you to grasp the concept of how operations starts feature within various different industries. And I urge you to do homework. Look at the different industries that is in our existence, and understand how operations specifically features in each of those industries. Okay. All right. Then we want to go into the basic importance of operations management. Okay, so we do understand you want a competitive advantage. You want to be basically the best of the best in your specific industry, and you want customers to keep coming back to you at the end of the day. You want to make sure that you're ticking your boxes in terms of value added service, in terms of what your objectives are, and you want to also make sure that you are maximizing your profitability in turn. So there's various different ways that we want to actually look at it, and why we consider it to be important in terms of operations management. So first one is cost leadership. And I think we did go a little bit into cost leadership um, in our first semester, but we want to make sure that the company's aim is to become the sort of lowest cost producer in the industry. But it doesn't always necessarily mean that you want to offer the lowest prices to your customer, but rather having the lowest cost of production, the lowest cost of operations. So it allows you for more flexibility. Okay, so in a lot of businesses, operations management is probably one of the most expensive roles and functions, because you're dealing a lot with costs that is not so much fixed but very varied. So you want to make sure that you're running an efficient and optimized supply chain and operations process in order for you to then be a cost leader in the industry. So looking at having something that's a lot more efficient in terms of your operations, how can you reduce waste as much as possible, but also increasing the productivity, whether it is you running your operations process from a finished good perspective or from a service perspective. So from a finished good perspective, you want to try and understand how your quality control in your production line is running so that you don't have any wastage in your business. And then from a service perspective, and you'll see me use a lot of logistics as my examples when we go into services, because it's the industry that I know and love. But when we're looking at it from a service perspective, you want to make sure that you have a very lean and Six Sigma operation so that your labor can take fewer steps, because steps cost money, mileage costs money, kilometers cost money. So how best can you now pre-plan, do route optimization, use a lot of automation in your business. So whether it's scanners or androids, how best can you now shape having a better um, streamlined operations. From a goods perspective, you obviously want a lot of um, economies of scale. So with economies of scale, and you'll see these terms will come up as we go along a lot more. You want to be able to be producing in volume so that you have a lower cost per unit. And that's where you want to see yourself at the end. You also want to source items that is, I'll say, particularly cheaper, but is more cost effective, but can still give you the same quality at the end. I know it's easier said than done, but everyone's now going down that route. You want flexibility and you want responsiveness in your operations process. You want to be able to change your process at the brink of an eye because it's costing you too much of money, basically. And you want the new process to now respond to any of the changes without it being a massive change in your business. So, for instance, and I'll use responsiveness a lot with, especially sort of like COVID time. So, especially when we went into COVID, nobody expected us to basically shut down for 21 days. Businesses had to now be very agile. They had to be flexible and they had to respond better, especially whether it meant them having to shut down their doors, whether they had to cut down people's salaries. And I'm speaking both from a goods and a service perspective. There was various different businesses that was not considered to be what's the word, essential services. And based on that, you had to regroup and you had to now refine where your strength lied and how best you can still have business continuity from that perspective. So you had to change an operations process, like for instance in the logistics industry, we had to find a niche which was an essential service, whether it meant delivering medication, whether it meant just connecting the dots between different touch points in order for us to get a loaf of bread across, or another essential item across. So the you have to shape your business specifically so that it responds well to very agile situations. Then we have supply chain management, which is your full scope. Whether it's an importing of raw materials right down to the delivery of a final product, or expediting a final service. We want to understand what every step of the supply chain is, and how operations management fits within supply chain. As I said, in a full supply chain, operations probably cost the most amount of money. So how best can we understand the function of operations in a supply chain, and based on that, how can we can make it more optimize it a lot better. Then we have innovation. So innovation from an innovative perspective, it's how can we change the landscape of operations that can help us to, um, whether it is a AI generation, or whether it is, tech and innovation or automation, how best can we use that in our ops process to get better results and to be a little bit more effective. From a strategic alignment perspective, we want to align ourselves with, especially from um, a logistics perspective, we want to align ourselves with strategic partners that can expedite or carry our objectives and our goals forward to the customer. A lot of times what happens, especially from a logistics side, is you don't tend to always have full control over your operations. A lot of your operations is outsourced to third parties, etc. But it's how well can you align yourself so that your third party carries the same values and objectives that you as a business carry. Okay. And I think that's sort of some portion of why operations is so important. But the end of it, you want to have the different criterias work within your operations into your operations process, so that you do become the best in the market. You do achieve success at the end of the day. You do want to turn revenue, you want to turn profit, you want to make an impact to your balance sheet, to your income statement. And these are sort of the things that we would then use to know how best we can, satisfy a customer at the end of the day, and coordinate our supply chain so that we're able to manage different relationships in our channels, so that we have smoother operations. Um, yeah, and I mean, from an innovative perspective, there's so many different supply chain concepts that businesses can use but fail to use. I recently started in a new business roughly about 2 months ago, and there was a lot of concepts that was just not brought into business. The reality is, a lean is where every business is going towards. How best can you run your operations at a reduced rate but still not affect quality? Then you have different sort of 5 S's, which is, how can you sort your flow, set it in order, shine, standardize, and then sustain it. Then we have Six Sigma. We have just in time. These are all concepts that we can use in business, but we just don't tend to use it. So if you are in like the working world, even if you're not in a supply chain position, but you are somewhere where your opinion does matter, or you can make suggestions for business improvement, use some of your theoretical knowledge that you pull out of these modules, and try and put a case study together. This is how I understand my business. These are the different theories that we can adapt to it. Whether it is you're in a manufacturing industry, how can you best use remanufacturing? What is your recycling concept? What is your sustainability policy? How can I go green logistics? These are the sort of concepts that we've learned over semesters that we can use in businesses to take it forward. And it sounds like rocket science, but it's actually not. It's just people are not using it and they're not thinking about it in that respect. Okay. Is there any questions so far? Is there anything that you're unsure of? Okay. Then we want to look at the different roles of operations management. There is various different roles of operations management. I just cannot go over each and every one. So I picked on the ones that I can specifically explain to you, that will make a difference. And it's also stuff that we probably even spoke about in this lecture. So we do know that ops plays a really important role when it comes to production and to the production of goods and the delivery of a service. So there's different roles that they play, especially in society, that contributes to society well-being or society economic development, etc. So when we look at operations management specifically, we want to look at it from an economic growth and economic development perspective. We want to look at it from a when we're looking at job creation. So when you have and running an efficient ops process or ops management process, you lead to a lot of business growth. You lead to some job creation. You improve livelihood of people. From a productivity perspective, you basically contributing towards economic growth because you are enhancing the productivity of your business. And then from an innovation perspective, you want to drive different sort of innovation in your operations management process so that you can get faster to market product, and you can also foster a very dynamic and a very competitive economy. Also from a society perspective, improvement of quality of life, because you now have different products that's available. I know we all think this, where exactly what I'm saying from an economic growth and quality of life perspective, that it's stuff that we all know about, but it's always at the back of our head. So right now, what my aim of pointing this out to you is for you to understand how this specific function in operations affects society and the economic stature of our country. So when we talk quality of life, we want to talk about products that are now available. We want to make sure if you are running something that's efficient, your products or your goods or your services are then available whenever they're needed. You then improve the quality of life. I mean, the worst thing is you walk into a shop and then or you go into 3 different shops and the product that you're looking for is now not available. Or you now want to get a parcel delivered from point A to point B and nobody now wants to help you. That can really frustrate somebody and can push them over the edge. Then you want something from a service efficiency perspective. You want to enhance the sort of efficiency and the effectiveness of some services, whether it is, public services where you have better society outcomes, or whether it's, as we mentioned, hospitality. So different services have different efficiency levels, and this then just helps, from a society perspective, exactly where ops would fit in. Then we have sustainability, and this is more from an environmental perspective, to manage your resources, to reduce as much wastage in your business, and also conserving some sort of natural resources, understanding where you're sitting at from an environmental impact perspective. A lot of businesses now don't have sustainability policies, but going more towards um, uh, a portion of life or the economy where a lot of businesses have gone towards the triple BE marking. Sustainability follows a big function or a big role in this. So we need to understand that environmental impacts, having different CSR campaigns, which is our corporate social responsibility, all of these things then impact your sustainability. And then lastly, it's innovation. So it's how do we best, or how can we best adopt technology? The introduction of new technologies, how can we then drive efficiency and innovation in our business? So new technologies is very underrated in various different industries. The role of technology is next level of business improvement right now. Specifically from a logistics perspective, previously when, let's say, you ordered something online and a courier has to now deliver it, if they're now walking to you with a piece of paper, which we call a waybill, if we walk to you with a piece of paper and they ask you to now sign this waybill, it now means that somebody had to handwrite this. There's firstly paper involved in it, so that's a cost. Someone now had to handwrite it, which is normally the sender. It now has to come in, get collected. It comes into the office. It now gets captured. So I need somebody to now capture this. From the capturing, you now have it sent out for delivery. Once it's delivered, the POD that now comes back now needs to be captured again. So you can understand that the process becomes very long, windy, and there's a lot of room for error. Whereas if we had full automation, a waybill is created by the sender online. The information is automatically pulled through to the courier company. They then expedite the delivery. The delivery is now done on a handheld scanner. POD is reflected in 5 seconds. It's as easy as that. But it does take time for the adoption of different technologies to come into play. I mean, the new route now is OTPs. Even if you order from, I think it's Uber Eats or Mr. Delivery, you get an OTP number. So you now need to capture that OTP number, and then you can get your food. So courier companies are going down the same route. Actually, any last mile delivery company is probably going to go down that route, especially if you have high value items that's being delivered to you, something like a bank card or something like a cell phone or a laptop, something that requires you to Fika, Rika, etc. The OTP is the route that a lot of businesses are now going to. So yes, I think realizing that technology is something that every business now needs to adopt. I mean, even if you have to look at it from a goods or a manufacturing perspective, you have production lines that run fully automated, and now we're now in a drone space where a lot of that functionality is taken over by machines. So, realistically, the adoption of technology is going to slowly take over, even us being in a third world setting. Okay, I think we're almost at the end, but we currently looking at the scope specifically of operations management. So when we look at it from a scope perspective, we want to also understand that operations management is pretty multifaceted. Um, there's a lot of overseeing, there's a lot of designing and redesigning of processes, there's a lot of controlling current processes, whether it's production or a service perspective. Um, so it basically, there's a lot of responsibilities, and some of the responsibilities is process management. Okay, so within process management itself, there's the process design. And we spoke about process design when we spoke about the hospitality industry. It's how can we then develop an efficient process where we're converting inputs into outputs. We also want to make sure that we keep improving on this process, where we have better productivity and we have better quality. So process management, a huge portion of operations, because it's only going to aid us in terms of how can we get continuous improvement within it. Then we have product and service management, and this is obviously a few of many as well. I just want to create a little bit of a landscape for you with this. So when we're talking about product and service management, we want to understand where the product design and the sort of development of the product is coming into play. So whether it's a good or a service, we want to make sure that it's meeting the customer's needs, and it's also meeting the customer's needs at a high quality standard. You want to make sure that there's service delivery, so whether it's your items are delivered on time, so that you have efficiency in your business and you have a lot of customer satisfaction. Then we have quality management, and here we're looking at it from a quality assurance side as well as a quality control side. So from a quality assurance, we want to be implementing different processes within your operations management to make sure that your product or your service is met with quality standards. So a lot of times when we're looking at it from a production perspective of goods, there's normally a QC process that sort of post-production that it would go through to understand out of the 10 products on the run, 3 is failed quality control. So quality management is very important from that perspective. From a service perspective, you want to make sure that you're reaching SLAs, you're meeting different, so service level agreements, or you're reaching different KPIs, so key performance indicators that was set out as you being part of the service industry by your customers. You're reporting on that service, that quality, etc. Then from a supply chain perspective, different portions in supply chain. You can understand that it is a vast array of different items in supply chain. So whether it's an operations management function, whether it is supplier relations, so how your different stakeholders in the business, how can you then manage those relationships so that you have a consistent flow of supply of materials, whether it's inventory management, so from a warehousing perspective, you want to be able to balance your inventory levels so that your supply meets your demand. You don't have overstocking, you don't have stockouts, and then you also want a logistics function, so whether it's transportation, delivery, storage of any of your goods. Then we have capacity planning. So capacity planning is where you're basically going to determine where you're sitting at from a production capacity. So everyone who's in a sort of production space or a production industry, they would have a capacity planning register. This is how much is going to be produced on X day at this run on this shift, using this material, etc. It's needed because of the changing demands all the time. So today you might be producing SKU item 123, and it's on the schedule. However, 4, 5, 6 is more important. So we're going to skip it. So capacity planning, very important from that perspective. You also want to make sure that you are allocating resources efficiently so that you have the maximum production within your capacity planning. And then lastly, you want to look at customer relationship management. And from a customer relationship management perspective, you want to collect as much customer feedback as possible. So data analysis is a huge portion of operations management because that's how you know if you are sustaining, you're improving, or you're going backwards. How can you then analyze your customer feedback so that you can improve your product or improve your service? And then your after sales service falls within your customer relationship management, where you are basically managing anything from an after sales support. So whether you purchase a vehicle and you have a repair and maintenance plan or a service plan, how can you best support that after sales? A lot of times when you purchase new items and there's an after sales, service or maintenance, and if you don't get good enough service, you think twice whether you're buying that brand again. So it speaks on loyalty, it speaks on customer satisfaction, etc. So you'll see a lot of way operations management. There is a lot of information to basically take in, but it is a portion from a supply chain perspective. And you'll see we'll make a lot of representation to what is part of a good and what is part of the service industry, because it does speak to two different processes specifically. So as we go further on in our semester, we will understand operations management a little bit more deeper, and how best you can relate to it, especially in the real world, and using that theory that we now discuss into application if you are given a case, or when you are given a case study, because let's be honest, supply chain is all about case studies and applying your knowledge. Yeah, I think more or less this covers sort of our definition of what operations management is, and I hope it has enlightened you just a little bit. Um, um, to gain a little bit more knowledge into operations management. So our next session, which is next week, is a pre-recorded session. So I will share that recording with you by Tuesday or Wednesday. And then thereafter, we're obviously going to have a live lecture, and I'm going to bring in a little bit more activities from that perspective. I will share everything that we discussed today on ARC, created as an announcement, and I want you to please look out for ICE tasks, etc., which should be released in another, I'd say, a week and a half or so. I have provided you with my contact details, so if you don't already have it or haven't already sent me a message or joined the group, please do so today. The quicker we get everybody on board, the better for us. Then we know what we're talking towards. Okay, so we do have a few minutes to spare. Is there any questions? Okay, I take it as though there's no questions. So thank you everybody for your time today. As I said, I will share the information with you. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to WhatsApp me or just pop me a mail. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you.